I think, once again, too many people are thinking about like the short-term consequences of this and not realizing that, you know, it's kind of like toothpaste. Once you squeeze it out of the tube, it's hard to get it back in, right? And so the idea here is, typically speaking, when inflation happens, it's hard to get that inflation back out of the economy, because that's, in order for that to happen, it's kind of what the economy and the government and the Fed considers as the boogeyman, which is deflation, and it's the last thing they want. Hey, what's going on, cash flow hackers? It's Chris with Life 180, and for this video, we're gonna be talking about a little education on how inflation really impacts you. There's all this conversation going on right now about 9.1% inflation. Inflation is the worst it's been since the 70s, yada, yada, yada. What the heck does it mean to you? What does it matter? Not just today, because I think, once again, too many people are thinking about like the short-term consequences of this and not realizing that, you know, it's kind of like toothpaste. Once you squeeze it out of the tube, it's hard to get it back in, right? And so the idea here is, typically speaking, when inflation happens, it's hard to get that inflation back out of the economy, because that's, in order for that to happen, it's kind of what the economy and the government and the Fed considers as the boogeyman, which is deflation, and it's the last thing they want. I personally believe deflation is a real concern. I really do. I think it's one of the greatest concerns that we have ultimately as we enter a recession, potential depression. However, I'm not beyond thinking and realizing that, you know, the government and the Fed might pull out the stops and have more ability to kind of control and manipulate things a little bit more than people realize. So I'm a big believer we need to be preparing for every potential outcome and circumstance that we're looking at. And the real purpose of this video is to show you the real impact that inflation has on you. You know, that analogy of you can't get the toothpaste back in once you squeeze it out, right? And what I did is I built a spreadsheet that I want to utilize to show you exactly what I'm talking about in this, and it's going to tie it all together. So let's take a look at it. All right, so what you got here is I put a spreadsheet together, and ultimately what you can see is we have an age, we have the income that they're currently earning. I wanted to just show a 25-year-old standard of living, $50,000, meaning got out of college, got a $50,000 job. The federal funds rate, you know, or the target inflation for the federal funds, I should say, is for the Federal Reserve, man, I'm just speaking too fast, is 2%. Target inflation rate for the, I'm gonna start this whole portion over again, Mikhail, because I'm just speaking, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we're gonna get it right. All right, so you look at this spreadsheet, and you can see here that I have age, income needed for standard of living, the inflation rate. I got 2% down here year after year after year, because that is what the target rate is for the Federal Reserve. And it's important to understand that number is the number that we're thinking about right now. Because remember, we're at 9.1% right now. The target rate for inflation for the Fed is 2. How does this have an impact? Because I always tell people, when we're saving up for retirement, when we're putting money away and saving for a future day, what we're doing is we're delaying gratification on that. And it's not a matter of how much money we have, it's about what that money is actually going to do for us, what the quality of life and standard of living is going to be with that money. So check this out. So a retirement account needed to maintain your standard of living based on the 4% rule, okay? Now, full transparency, I'm not taking Social Security into the equation, because I'm a real believer that Social Security isn't really gonna be what it is today, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. And so I'm not banking on it. However, if you wanna reduce these numbers a little bit, I could just reduce these numbers by 20% or so, 25%, and then that would impact everything for Social Security, and we would go from there. We can actually do a run through on that and talk about that. So let's just say 10 years ago, a 25-year-old started working, and they were working and they were saving, and they were on track to be able to get where they wanted to go. So now you're 30, they're at 35. If they haven't, based on the 2% inflation rule, haven't increased their salary to at least $60,949, that means they've had to take a reduction in standard of living. Their wages have not kept up with the cost of living in the world, right? And so the problem with this is that you're going through, and we're fighting inflation with our investments, because you started at 50,000. Now, it shouldn't be a problem to get to this point in time, because hopefully in that first decade of your career, you're gonna evolve. You're gonna invest in your knowledge, your skills, you're gonna increase yourself as from a value perspective as a product in the marketplace that can, either go out and create a better business and create more revenue, or maybe you add more skill sets, or you get another certificate and you're able to do different things and demand more income, provide more value to the organization so they want to pay you more income. That's the better way to look at it. And that is what it is. But you can see here, as you go up, you don't put inflation back in the bottle. Let's face it, 10 years ago, that you were making 50,000, the inflation happens here. This has been going on. It's a real thing. If you go back and you start making $50,000 a year, you're in trouble. You're gonna have to take a reduction in standard of living. But the problem is, these years you were saving, let's assume you were saving at the right rate, you're saving at a rate that's gonna prepare you for the $50,000 income rate. So that retirement income platform that you're having your money go through, that you're investing in and saving in, better keep up better than inflation, because you need $1.25 million at the 4% rule. If you're not familiar with the 4% rule, the 4% rule is simply a rule stating that you can utilize 4% of your retirement income portfolio, retirement asset portfolio, and utilize 4% for income without running a massive risk of running out of money during retirement. And so you're about to see what I'm talking about here. So what we're doing is, you go down at this age, you went from needing $1.25 million to now all of a sudden you need over $1.5 million, right? So you need an extra $273,000, right? Just to be able to maintain your standard of living, compared to what you thought you needed to maintain your standard of living when you got there, when you started off your career. Now let's go all the way down to when you're 65, okay? At 65, you're gonna need to be earning $110,000 just to maintain that standard of living. Once again, hopefully you're earning far more than that based on your skills and development, personal development, all that. But once again, I want to use this as an example to teach a principle in a vacuum to kind of get you to understand this. Now, all of a sudden, you don't need $1.25 million, you need $2.76 million, right? So this goes, let's just use this number. I'm going to highlight this. Let's use this number as as kind of like the benchmark that we're looking at. Where is my thing here? I need highlight. We're going to use this as the benchmark, okay? So that number is the benchmark that we are going according to, and you can see, and I'm going to actually, we'll look at the 110,000 as well. Those two numbers, that is the benchmark number. So now let's go. This person says, okay, that's what I'm making. Well, guess what? Now all of a sudden we have 9.1%. Actually, no, last year, let's say this is 2021, we have 4.5% inflation, right? And then let's say we have 9.1% inflation in 2022. Now we went from where we were, I don't even remember what the number was. It was like oh gosh, I gotta go back and do it. Hold on. We went from 2.7 million in just 2 years of inflation going a little out of control. We went from 2.7 million to needing 3.024 million. So just over $3 million. So basically you needed an extra 300 grand, we'll call it, an extra about 10% you needed to add to your retirement account just to be able to make up for these 2 years of higher inflation. So this is really, people are worried about like, how am I gonna put gas in my car? How am I gonna do all these things? The real concern that you should have lies down out here 30, 40 years out from now, because compounding works against you. These 2 years alone have forced it so you need more income to be able to maintain your standard of living. Now let's say they rein it under control. This year it's 9.1, maybe next year it goes down to 8, and the Fed is just gonna rejoice in the success that they've had in controlling inflation. Then the next year it's 6, and the next year it's 4, and the next year it finally gets back to 2.5, and then finally it's 2, and they've hit target rates, and they're like, man, we are so amazing. This is just like, this was tough. We know it was hard on everybody, but we got through it, and now we're all stronger for it. But now all of a sudden, instead of 2.7 million needed to maintain your standard of living at retirement, you get to 65 years old and you need $3.4 million, right? All the while during these years, my guess is during these challenging years right here, you probably struggled. You probably weren't able to save as much as you want, so you're probably falling behind because you didn't have the right financial strategy, you didn't have your financial structure set up properly to be able to be prepared for all this and to be able to take advantage of this. I just did a video the other day talking about how to prepare yourself to be able to thrive and how to be profitable in a recession. If you are not ready for what's coming and for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years that we're going to be facing, I'm a big believer, we've never seen anything like what we're about to come into. And being prepared for it is either going to help you thrive, or because this is going to create some really challenging times, or you're going to suffer through it. And if you suffer, you're going to have a hard time. Now, the one thing I can tell you is every now and then they're going to throw in inflation is going to be a little higher, it could be a little lower, whatever. But once again, once inflation happens, in order for this to happen, we're going to need a recession. What's a recession? We're not going to need a recession. A recession isn't exactly what I'm talking. We're going to need deflation. We're going to need deflation. So let's say we have this. What do we need for deflation? So negative 2%. Do you realize what this would do to the economy if we did this? Let's say we had a deflationary environment for a couple years. Well, guess what? We're still not where we want to be. We're still, with those years, remember 2.7 million is the target that we need to get back to. We need a couple years where it's really big negative to be able to get back there. -5 didn't even do it. -10, will it do it? Because once you need a bigger correction, -10 almost did it, was in 2.7, we'll just call that even. So we need a big contraction year, big deflationary period, because I did deflation over a 3-year period here. Once again, I'm not saying this is how things are gonna go. I'm not telling you this is how things work out. I'm telling you, you need to be making sure your financial structure is positioning you so you can thrive in every environment. If this is not something you're taking into real consideration, you're really exposing yourself, your family, your business, your livelihood, your ability to maintain your standard of living for the rest of your life. And that is all that matters when it comes to your financial security, right? And so that's all. So if you have any questions, make sure you comment in the comment section below. If you haven't already, make sure you follow the channel, hit the subscription button, hit the bell, that way you get notified every time I launch a new video. Until next time, have a blessed, inspirational day. We'll talk soon. See ya.